Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Here we are once again.
Alhamdulillah. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for inviting us.
Love it when you brothers stop by and when you come by to talk to us about divorce. So that's what we're talking about.
I guess we have to. And if we have to, then we have to.
We have to talk about this. You had an interesting question that you wanted to ask him, but I wouldn't let you.
Why?
I'm a mean man, but I'm going to let you do that.
Go ahead.
All right, Sheikh. So is there certain conditions that is related to the man who divorces his wife and conditions that is related to the woman who gets divorced? Or
indeed, that's a good question. So I think we'll answer it. And we'll give it a priority. You know, since we talked before about that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the right of giving divorce to the man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not for granted. That's not open this way. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meanwhile put certain conditions to make it very hard, to make it very, very limited, to limit this power of giving divorce. And to make the man think twice and so many times before using this right. To be really in charge and responsible for this control which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, Abdurrahman, there are conditions related to the man who gives the divorce, conditions related to the woman, the wife who gets divorced. And if we put them together, we'll find it sounds like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want them to get divorced. Yes, indeed. But, once again, if this is the only solution, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed it. But the Prophet ﷺ has said that the most disliked, permissible act is giving divorce. But if this is the only solution, then that's it. So, number one, the one who gives divorce has to be in a condition of being able to understand what he says. A wise man, not being in a coma, not being forced to say the word of divorce, not being extremely angry that he's not aware of what he says.
What about the fool who text messages his wife, "I divorce you"?
Did we talk about that before?
Yeah, you brought that up.
Yeah, joking.
Joking. Yeah. So would it count as divorce, Abdurrahman?
You said, Sheikh, I believe that you said it will count because it's the only act where the intention is not counted. If you say divorce, even if you're joking, it's divorce.
What about if we say, rephrase it this way, it is one of three acts which the Prophet ﷺ said that whether you're serious or joking, they count as serious, right? So one of them is getting divorce. No joke with divorce.
And what about Sheikh, nowadays, Brother Ismail told me some people gamble with it or bet, like they bet on it. Or like for example, they're watching their favorite teams in whatever sport they like, and they're like, if that team wins, I'm gonna divorce my wife. What about them? Even though they're immature,
the least to say is that they don't appreciate, they don't understand the value of the married life. And basically, sooner or later, that their marriage life will not last. Because if their marriage life is that insignificant to them to play game on it and to gamble with it, then they are not fit and qualified to be right husbands or the righteous husband.
Just husbands.
Yeah.
They're fools. They don't meet the first category of the person who can give them out.
So back to the conditions of which are related to the man before giving a divorce, that has to be aware of what he says. He has to be fully in control, not being forced. And talking about divorcing one's wife while he is in a state of ghilaq, where the Prophet ﷺ stated that neither nikah, marriage, nor divorce would count if a person in a state of ghilaq, where his heart is closed, his mind is blocked, and he doesn't understand what he says. But let me say the rule here very, very clear. Normally, after divorce, somebody would come and say, you know, I was mad. What do you mean you were mad? How mad were you? The ulama put the condition since the Prophet ﷺ stated that the man didn't know what he was saying, didn't recognize who was there during that time. So he said, you're divorced, because he was under very severe emotional distress, or angry, or a big fight, so that he did not really mean what he said.
You get to the point of being angry where you black everything out. You don't remember what you said, what you did, who was there, anything like that.
And I'm afraid a lot of people use this as right after they give a divorce, they come around and say, Sheikh, I was angry. And the Sheikh would take it from his mouth as that I was angry, so, well, that's fine, it's nullified, it doesn't count.
I heard one Sheikh say, of course you were angry, you were fighting with your wife.
And what if he was insane? Crazy?
That doesn't count. That doesn't count.
Should he be married if he's insane?
There is another case, by the way. This is very interesting. Sometimes a person, prior to his death, right away, if he wants to deprive his wife from the inheritance, he divorces his wife.
That's a very
Will
nice
say, no thank you, that doesn't count.
Yeah, that's a very nice
Because the intention was to harm her. So she still have the right to inherit you even though you divorced her. You know?
Does that really happen?
That happens, and that have happened before.
Oh, mashallah. That's
I've heard that there are two types of divorce, that the Sunni and Bid'ah, and I don't know what
That will take us to the conditions which are related to the woman who gets divorced. Okay? It's not only the man who gives the divorce, the woman too.
Talib.
A woman should not be, during her period, should not be divorced while she's having the period. Nor should be divorced if after having the period and she's cleaned up, that her husband embraced her sexually. In this case, he can't give her a divorce. He has to wait until the next period, then she's cleaned up, and she witnesses the next monthly period, indicating that she's not pregnant. This very strict condition was put by the Prophet ﷺ and by the Quran, of course. It happened when Abdullah, the son of Umar ibn Khattab, may Allah be pleased with them, have divorced his wife once. So Umar ibn Khattab brought the case before the Prophet ﷺ that his son have divorced his wife when she was having her period. So the Prophet ﷺ was very mad, and he said to him, Murhu falyuraji'ha, order him to return her back. Then let him wait until the period is over, and have him not contact her sexually if he's planning to divorce her still. Then once she have her next period and she's cleaned up, before contacting her, if he wants to divorce her, he may. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have revealed an entire surah. It's called Surah At-Talaq, divorce. So here we have one of the longest surahs in the Quran is known as Surah An-Nisa, women, which stated all the rights related to women and so on, and amongst them also divorce. And an entire surah related to divorce, setting the rules and regulations to preserve all the rights of a divorcee or a divorced woman. So he says, glory be to him, يا أيها النبي إذا طلقتم النساء فطلقوهن لعدتهن وأحصوا العدة. O the Prophet, if you guys, the men, divorce your women, if you divorce women, do what? فطلقوهن لعدتهن. Divorce them at their prescribed period, which the ulama stated that the prescribed period is after having her monthly period. And after she's cleaned up, and during this period, without having a sexual relationship with her, to make sure that she's not pregnant. So what benefits do we get if we make sure that she's not pregnant? Take the following. When a person knows that the woman who's going to divorce is pregnant, he's pretty much going to change his mind. Now she's going to be the mother of his children. There are other factors which would make the person interested in his wife, whom yesterday that he was planning to get rid of her and to divorce her.
Today he's very happy with her.
Same thing with the wife. Now she knows that her children are going to need a father, and she's going to need some support. So she might be willing to reconciliate. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts those conditions to indicate that talaq or divorce is not for granted as a right for a man. No. So if a person violates those conditions and he still divorces his wife whenever and however he wants, that's called talaqun bid'i, and it was done against the sunnah which the Prophet ﷺ prescribed. And he's committing a big sin.
And it doesn't count?
Now we're coming to a very technical point, which is whether it does count or not. The vast majority of the scholars of Sharia say that it does count, but he's committing a haram.
But it's a sinful.
We're having Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and his student Ibn al-Qayyim said that since it is bid'i and it's not done against the sunnah, it does not count. Because the Prophet ﷺ ordered Umar ibn al-Khattab to tell Abdullah to return his wife back.
Go back.
But the argument is related to whether that was count as one divorce or not.
2 or 3.
Okay. So a lot of people learn about marriage, but they don't learn anything about divorce. They end up destroying their married life without knowing and say, I didn't know. In this case, that's not an excuse. It is mandatory upon every couple to understand their rights and their duties towards each other and before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. Reviewing that would give a lot of assurance to women and to the wives that even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this right to the man, but He controlled it. And He preserved all the rights of the woman to honor her, protect her, and deal with her as a very respected human being.
I think it stomps out a lot of things that was said in the West also about how the man can just say, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. And then his wife is, kicked out onto the street in the cold with the kids and, khalas, that's it, they're done.
No.
So, that's the conception of divorce. That's what people think of when they think of divorce.
And also in the West, or in Jahiliyyah life, he divorces any time. There's no rules for divorce. He doesn't really feel, he doesn't really care about what the situation, the period, if she's going into
I just wish
inshallah.
Not only Muslims and non-Muslims as well, when they read the Quran, they read it all. They don't take things out of context. When you know and you study, and of course you read the remarks of the Sunnah upon the verses, you understand that this Quran was revealed by the all-knowing, the most wise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I think it's time for us to get ready to make wudu, inshallah ta'ala. So we'll take a small time to make some wudu, and we'll
I already,
you already have wudu?
I think I need to have wudu
Okay,
too.
inshallah. So we'll go do that, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Hopefully we'll discuss some tips on how to increase the ability of getting the dua or the supplication answered.
Allah delays giving you what you want and gives you a reward that is equal to that or better in this life or in the world to come, forgiving your sins and giving you good deeds.
We're going to look at some questions that we've asked some of our brothers on the street. We asked them, should Muslims have a dialogue with other religions?
We're going to need some stability.
So it doesn't matter where we live, we need to care for those ones, to give them the rights that Allah gives.
This life is not the eternal life. It is a test.
Particularly for the youth of today. So if there are any parents or uncles or whoever is watching, if you have 16, 17, 18, 20-year-olds with you, make sure they stop doing whatever they're doing and come in and watch this show, inshallah.
I meant to discuss with you before I leave tonight a very important thing.
Which is?
You know that Islam is all about good manners and etiquette. The Prophet ﷺ stated in one hadith, I was exclusively sent to perfect good manners. That is applicable also in the state of giving divorce. So there are etiquettes of giving divorce. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, number one, الطلاق مرتان فإمساك بمعروف أو تسريح بإحسان. Giving divorce is as following, twice. First and second time are revocable or reversible. But Shaykh said there are 3 times. Yes, the third one, that's it, is irreversible.
Khalas, it's done.
You have no right
Can bring her
even
back.
to remarry her once again. Okay? So he gave you a chance and a second chance. That's it. So afterward, after giving divorce, you have the right to do the following. If it is the first and the second time, إِمْسَاكٌ بِمَعْرُوفٍ, you either retain them on reasonable terms, أَوْ تَسْرِيحٌ بِإِحْسَانٍ, or release them, let them go after the period which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed of waiting with kindness. That will take us to talk about the period of waiting. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted divorce in very limited conditions and is considered as the most disliked halal, still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them a chance for reconciliation even after divorce. And reconciliation is highly recommended, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated all the conditions of reconciliation even after divorce by doing the following. That for a divorcee, she has to remain through the period of waiting, 3 periods or 3 months, at her husband or ex-husband's house, at her house, whether she have children or not. She's got to wait and remain there. And the Prophet ﷺ recommended for her that she should adorn herself, wear her best clothes.
Look sexy.
And appear, yes, actually appear nicely as inviting her husband to return her once again. And if that happens, so that there is no reason that she should leave home, and he's responsible for providing for her and taking care of her. So she is divorced and she has to stay with him in the same house. Why?
Make it come back.
Exactly.
Eventually he's going to be like,
That happens after the first time and after the second time.
Third time?
Third time, there is no return. It's irreversible. And in Islam, that's known as الطلاق البائن, where there is no way back. Okay? There is another case if the husband divorces his wife and he waits for the period to pass without showing interest in returning her, whether it is 3 periods or 3 months. It depends. Then he happened to be interested in remarrying his ex-wife once again, and she agrees and she doesn't mind. In this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permits them to marry once again, as long as he had not divorced her 3 times.
So if it's the first or the second, this is cool.
And after the period is over, that would require the same requirements as the very first time of marriage. An acceptance from the wife, and an offer from the husband, of course, and a new dowry, everything as they're newly married.
And this given the right to divorce her 3 times as well?
With dispute between the ulama as whether it counts, whatever happened in the past counts or not. Okay? But what we're saying here is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated that divorce should be only done twice as reversible. Why? Because before Islam, if he wanted to hurt his wife, he would divorce her. And before the iddah is over, he would return her. And then once again, he will divorce her. Endless time.
Keep her between marriage and divorce.
Yes. So that she's neither married nor
Nor
divorced.
divorced.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala confiscated this right from the man, and He made it very limited to 2 times, and the third is the final. One should really expect and think good of a divorcee, not because a woman is divorced that she's bad. Fatima bint Qais, may Allah be pleased with her, after the iddah was over, she got an offer from Abdurrahman ibn Auf. May Allah be pleased with her. He proposed for her, and he is one of the 10 people who were given the glad tidings of paradise. Meanwhile, the Prophet ﷺ wanted her to marry Osama ibn Zayd. So she was now having 2 best offers, not one. But she remembered that the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever loves Osama loves me. So she said, Ya Rasulullah, well, you get to choose for me, whichever one you like. So even though she was an ex-wife, it doesn't mean that she's bad. A lot of people have this concept. And this is one of the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted marrying for more than once. You know, a lot of divorcee around, they're righteous and they're good, maybe they have children and they need somebody to take care of them.
What if a man says to his wife, you are divorced, you are divorced, you are divorced? Does this count as 3 or 1?
This is another thing which counts as bid'ah. Again, is the sunnah, an innovation. Remember, the etiquettes of giving divorce, amongst them is to give divorce according to the way the Prophet ﷺ prescribed. Hadith Abdullah ibn Umar, as how to divorce your wife. Return her, because he divorced her while she was minister waited. So he ordered him to return her and wait until she's cleaned up. Then she's having the next period, and do not embrace her sexually, and wait until she experiences the next period to make sure that she's not pregnant. All of that as one divorce. But exploiting this principle and saying, you're divorced, you're divorced, you're divorced thrice, that's again is a sunnah. That's not in line with what the Prophet ﷺ prescribed.
And it counts.
So it won't count then?
Once again, the Jumhur, the vast majority of the ulama said, yes, it falls and it counts as thrice. If he pronounces it, you're divorced 3 times, even in the same sitting, that counts as 3. As a punishment for him, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a way out. One after another, 2 chances, and the third is the last. So you utilized all of them at once, so as a mean of punishment. But once again, I tend to take the opinion of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, where he says that that's not the way the Prophet ﷺ prescribed. I love our men to understand their deen, and to understand the right which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, not to abuse this right, or otherwise they would lose it.
What's the case if you've said divorce on someone 3 times, and then you want to remarry them after the final and 3rd divorce? What do you have to do?
If what we described as talaq al-ba'in is irreversible, and they're interested, the couple, interested in getting married once again, that can never happen before having the ex-wife getting married to another person, a complete marriage, not a pre-arranged, by the meaning that an engineered marriage, that she's only marrying on paper so that she will be lawful after divorce to her ex-husband. That is totally haram, and it is one of the major sins, one of the very severe sins.
That falls into zina.
But what to do, that if she got married normally, and she lived normally with her new husband, then divorce happened.
Problems happen.
And after the iddah is over, and she's now without a husband, her first husband
can approach her.
Is approaching her back, and she kind of likes that. That's okay. They can remarry once again with the same conditions, which we say that mahr, dowry, ijab, and qabul, offer and acceptance, and of course in the presence of witnesses, and all of that.
That's only after the 3rd. After the 1st and 2nd, you can marry her back just with dowry.
Exactly.
And Sheikh, and now for the woman, we said like when she asks separation, when she asks khula, like you said, Sheikh, how for example, if she wants to get back to her husband, could she or no?
Okay. That will take us to talk briefly about the period, the iddah, which is the waiting time following divorce, where during this time the husband is allowed to return his wife back to his married life by saying that, come back to my married life, or by acting. The scholar said by hugging his wife, since the Prophet ﷺ said that she should stay at home, and he advised her to do what? To tempt him, to make him come back. Okay? That's a smart woman would do. Okay. So he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the period is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوءٍ. And the divorced women, they should wait. During this period, there should not be any plans of marriage other than this person, because she is still considered as married to that person, as long as she is still in the iddah, whether it is 3 periods, 3 menstruations, or 3 months, according to different opinions. Okay? So, in this case, he had the right to return her back. Okay? But if it was not a divorce, if it was khula, that the separation was initiated by the woman and she paid the dowry back, or she made a term of agreement, in this case, that the husband does not have the right to return her back. Why? Because that was a separation, was not a divorce done by him. And in this case, if he's interested in returning her back, with a mutual agreement with her, that would require a new marriage once again.
Once again, because the khula was separated by a judge,
yes.
not by him.
Yes.
And what would be the iddah of the pregnant woman?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stated, وَأُولَاتُ الْأَحْمَالِ أَجَلُهُنَّ أَن يَضَعْنَ حَمْلَهُنَّ. Once she gives birth, the iddah is over, even if it is only 1 day.
And that reminds me, our iddah is over for this time this week, so for this meeting. So inshallah, we'll get together next time.
Hey, enough divorce.
Yeah, we'll talk about something new. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh Salah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.